The colony of Erebus 9 was silent, too silent. Once a thriving settlement, it now lay under a heavy shadow. Strange sickness had spread through the colony like wildfire. Machines failed, crops died, and people who had been full of life now wandered aimlessly, their eyes distant and vacant. No one could explain what had caused it, and no medicine seemed to work. Fear was rising, like a storm cloud ready to break. Captain Mira Selen stood at the observation window of the colony's main hub. She could see the red dust of Erebus 9 stretching endlessly into the horizon, barren and unforgiving. The sky glowed faintly with the light of the distant sun, but it offered little comfort. Mira's heart pounded. She had faced danger before, but this was different. This was not a storm or an enemy army. This was something she could not fight alone. In the communications room, her team worked frantically. Screens flickered with static and error messages. Attempts to contact Earth had failed again. The colony's systems were breaking down one by one. Dr. Alaric Voss, the chief scientist, rubbed his forehead and muttered, "It's spreading too fast. We can't contain it. If we don't get help soon..." His voice trailed off because he knew what it meant. Mira took a deep breath. "Then we call for help," she said firmly. "No matter how far, no matter who is listening, someone will answer." She activated the emergency transmitter, a device capable of sending signals far beyond normal range. But this was no ordinary signal. Mira instructed the team to encode it not just with coordinates or technical data, but with the feelings of the colony, fear, hope, and the desperate will to survive. It was a message meant to reach beyond the usual limits of communication, a cry into the unknown. Hours passed. The signal was sent into deep space, moving faster than any ship could travel. Mira watched the stars, wondering if anyone or anything would hear them. "Do you really think someone will come?" asked Lieutenant Rena Kaur, her voice trembling. Mira did not answer immediately. She wanted to believe, but she knew the truth. The universe was vast, and the chance of help arriving seemed slim. Yet deep inside, a small spark of hope burned. Sometimes, even in the darkest night, help could come from the most unexpected places. Back on Earth, in the high-security research stations, alarms rang as the signal from Erebus 9 was intercepted. Scientists and government officials crowded around large holographic displays, reading the data streaming in. Most of them shook their heads. "It's too late," said one. "We can't risk sending ships. The virus, it's unknown. It could come here." But among the observers, there were others who felt differently. Dr. Celine Harth, a geneticist studying Earth's ancient apex species, stared at the incoming signal with wide eyes. "Wait," she whispered. "The call? It's not just technology. It's alive. They're asking for help in a way that touches the mind, the spirit." Celine had spent years researching creatures that most humans had thought extinct. Giant predators, long-lost guardians of Earth's ecosystems, had been kept in secret sanctuaries. Some were bioengineered for survival. Some were naturally extraordinary. Most people called them monsters, dangerous and uncontrollable. But Celine knew the truth. These beings were intelligent, and they had a unique connection to the life of Earth. She turned to the others. "This is more than a signal. It's a plea that may only be answered by creatures who understand life in a way we can't. The monsters of Earth. They might be able to help." The room fell silent. No one had ever seriously considered involving these creatures in space missions. They were dangerous, powerful, unpredictable. But Celine's words planted a seed of possibility. If humanity's best technology could not save Erebus 9, then perhaps the guardians of Earth, the very beings humans had once feared, could answer the call. Meanwhile, on Erebus 9, the colony grew weaker by the hour. The virus twisted plants and water sources into threats, making even the simplest task dangerous. Mira moved from room to room, checking on colonists, giving words of encouragement, holding hands, and listening. She knew that hope mattered as much as any medicine. That night, Mira looked up at the stars. She whispered a promise to her people. "Help is coming. It must come. And when it does, we will not face this alone." Far across the universe, something stirred. In the hidden depths of Earth, in secret places untouched by humans, ancient beings sensed the call. Deep in their minds, a resonance echoed, something familiar, something urgent. The monsters of Earth had heard a cry for help, and they were moving. For the first time in many long weeks, Mira felt a small smile cross her face. In the endless darkness of space, in the silence of Erebus 9, The colony was not entirely alone. Somewhere out there, help was coming, and it would be unlike anything humanity had ever imagined. Far beneath the forests, mountains, and oceans of Earth, something stirred. Creatures long hidden from human eyes awoke, sensing a call that crossed the stars. The signal from Erebus 9 was faint, but it carried more than coordinates. It carried the heartbeat of fear, hope, and desperation. The monsters of Earth felt it deep in their minds, a resonance they could not ignore. In a hidden sanctuary deep in the Amazon basin, Thyra, a massive winged predator with shimmering scales, flexed her powerful wings. Her senses reached far beyond the forest. She could feel the trembling of humans on another planet, their lives in danger. Her instincts told her that something must be done. Thyra's roar echoed through the cavern and others responded. A chorus of deep, intelligent growls rose from the shadows as creatures of every shape and size awakened. In the Arctic tundra, Korak, a towering beast with thick fur and ice-blue eyes, shook himself awake. His sharp mind immediately understood the call. Life was at stake. He could see the humans' faces in his mind, hear their silent plea. Though humans had feared him for centuries, Korak felt no hostility. Instead, he felt purpose. This was not a threat. It was a chance to protect life beyond their world. Meanwhile, on Erebus 9, Captain Mira Selen and her team were unaware of what was happening back on Earth. Their situation was growing desperate. The virus had begun affecting even the colony's communication drones, twisting them into chaotic machines that attacked equipment and supplies. Colonists had to work in teams protecting each other just to maintain basic survival. Mira paced through the corridors, worry pressing on her chest. In a hidden research lab on Earth, Dr. Celine Harth watched anxiously as sensors detected unusual activity. The monsters were moving, not randomly, but with purpose. She knew they could not travel through space in the usual way. Yet somehow the bond formed by the call from Erebus 9 would guide them. "They are listening," Celine whispered. "They understand what humans cannot. They will answer." As the days passed, Earth's monsters began to gather. Aquatic guardians left the deepest oceans, their sleek bodies gliding silently through hidden portals. Forest dwellers, creatures of wood, vine, and stone, moved toward secret gateways beneath the earth. Even the skyborne predators, who once ruled the clouds alone, joined the assembly. Each being was unique, with abilities shaped by the natural and artificial forces of Earth. They were monsters by human standards, yet wise, intelligent, and capable of cooperation beyond imagination. Back on Erebus 9, Lieutenant Rena Kaur noticed an anomaly in the sky. Strange shadows flickered across the red dust, shapes too large to be ordinary ships. Mira squinted, her heart quickening. Could it be rescue ships at last? She adjusted the sensors, but nothing on the colony's instruments could explain it. "Mira, look," Rena said, pointing. "Something is coming." Across the void of space, Earth's monsters were emerging from hidden launch points. They did not need engines or fuel in the way humans did. Some seemed to glide on unseen currents. Others moved through space using psychic energy, instinct guiding them across millions of kilometers. It was not technology that carried them, but the ancient connection of life itself. For humans, the first encounter was terrifying. Giant shapes appeared in the blackness outside the colony. Massive wings, claws, and scales visible even through the shields. The crew scrambled to prepare defenses, unsure if these beings were friend or foe. Mira raised her hands in a gesture of peace. Slowly, she realized they were not attacking. They hovered, intelligent eyes fixed on the colony, sensing the humans' fear and hope. Communication was not easy. The monsters could not speak human language. But through mental images, emotions, and gestures, they conveyed understanding. The humans saw visions of the virus, the infected areas, and the suffering of the colonists. In return, humans shared their strategies, their maps, and their desires for survival. A fragile connection formed, built on trust and necessity. Dr. Celine Harth, monitoring remotely, smiled as she watched the interactions unfold. Humanity's first contact with these ancient guardians was not in war, but in cooperation. "They know what must be done," she said softly, "and they will guide us." Captain Mira felt a mix of awe and relief. The monsters were larger, stronger, and more powerful than anything humans had ever imagined. Yet they were not here to dominate. They were here to help. With them, the colony might survive, even the virus. With them, hope returned. That night, As the red sun set over Erebus 9, Mira looked up at the enormous shadows moving across the sky. For the first time in weeks, she felt the weight of despair lift. Somewhere in the cosmos, the monsters of Earth had answered a cry for help. The colony was no longer alone. And for the humans who had sent the signal and the creatures who had responded, a new partnership was beginning. A partnership that would change everything they thought they knew about strength, courage, and survival. The journey to Erebus 9 was unlike anything humanity had ever experienced. Captain Mira Salen stood on the deck of the human ship, staring in awe at the creatures of Earth moving alongside them. Some glided through space with enormous wings, casting shadows across the hull. Others swam through the void as if it were water, their sleek bodies glowing faintly with energy. Every movement seemed effortless, as though the universe itself bent to their will. The humans were tense. They had never traveled with beings so powerful, and they did not fully understand their abilities. Yet every human aboard felt an unspoken reassurance. These were not threats. They were guardians. Lieutenant Rena Kaur studied the creatures closely. "They don't need engines," she said, her voice filled with wonder. "They seem connected to space itself." Dr. Alaric Voss, the chief scientist, nodded. "It's remarkable. Their physiology, their senses. It's beyond our comprehension. And yet they are here to help us survive." Even the smallest members of the colony, children who had survived the virus, stared in amazement. One little girl, Lena, reached out toward a shimmering creature that moved beside the ship. Its eyes met hers, gentle and intelligent. Lena smiled, feeling hope she hadn't felt in weeks. The journey was not easy. Space was full of dangers. Meteoroid fields swirled like storms, threatening to tear ships apart. Strange gravitational waves pulled the fleet off course. Even communication signals struggled to reach their destination. But the monsters of Earth were invaluable. Thyra, the winged predator, led the fleet through the densest debris. She used her psychic sense to detect weak points in the asteroid paths, guiding the ship safely. Korak, the ice blue-eyed giant, manipulated subtle gravitational currents to push the fleet through areas where engines alone would fail. Other creatures scouted ahead, their senses detecting unseen dangers and warning humans before disaster could strike. Captain Mira watched as her crew learned from the monsters. Engineers studied their movements, trying to understand patterns that could improve navigation. Soldiers practiced coordinating with them, learning to anticipate their instincts. Slowly, humans began to see strength not just in technology but in cooperation, in instinct, and in the deep connection of life itself. But the journey was not only physical, it was emotional and mental. The monsters communicated in ways humans were not used to, through visions, feelings, and instincts. At first it was confusing. A sudden surge of fear, a mental image of destruction, or a feeling of urgency could overwhelm the crew. Yet over time humans adapted. They learned to read the creature's intentions, to trust their guidance, and to act as one. One evening, as the fleet passed a glowing nebula, Captain Mira walked along the observation deck beside Thyra. The creature's wings stretched wide, catching the faint light of distant stars. "I never imagined anything like this," Mira said quietly. "I thought we were alone in this universe." Thyra's eyes glimmered and a feeling washed over Mira. Calm, strength, and purpose. It was not speech but understanding. They shared a connection, a silent bond formed in the desperate hope of survival. Mira realized that humanity had underestimated the universe and the life that called it home. Suddenly, alarms rang across the fleet. Sensors detected a massive gravitational anomaly ahead, a rogue black hole drifting into their path. Human engines alone could not navigate it. Panic rose among the crew, but the monsters acted without hesitation. Korak extended his massive limbs, creating a gravitational shield that allowed ships to pass safely. Thyra and the winged predators used synchronized psychic pushes to adjust trajectories. Every creature worked as a living part of the fleet, combining instincts with the humans' technology. When the danger passed, the humans cheered. For the first time, they felt truly united with another form of life, not as masters or prisoners, but as allies. Captain Mira felt a thrill she had never experienced in all her years of service. This was not just a rescue mission. This was a lesson. Humanity was learning that strength came in many forms: courage, unity, and respect for life beyond themselves. Night fell over the fleet. The stars twinkled in endless darkness, and the red dust of Erebus 9 still waited far ahead. Mira sat quietly in her cabin, thinking of the colony, the virus, and the creatures guiding them. She thought of the children, the colonists, and the hope that still burned in their hearts. Somewhere in the void, the monsters of Earth glided effortlessly, silent guardians of life. They did not seek glory, recognition, or reward. Their only purpose was clear: to answer the call for help, to protect life where technology and weapons might fail. And in their presence, humans began to understand what it meant to be truly strong. The journey was far from over. Danger still waited, and Erebus 9 was still under threat. But the humans were no longer alone. Together with Earth's monsters, they would face whatever the universe threw at them. And for the first time in weeks, Captain Mira felt a hope so powerful it could not be shaken. The monsters had answered the call, and they were leading humanity into a future where survival depended not on fear, but on courage, cooperation, and trust. Erebus 9 had changed. The once organized colony now resembled a battlefield. Red dust swirled in the wind, and the eerie silence was broken only by the occasional groan of infected colonists or the whine of failing machinery. The alien virus had spread faster than anyone could contain. Entire sections of the colony had become dangerous zones, and the humans were running out of time. Captain Mira Salen stood on a high observation platform, her hands gripping the railing tightly. "This is worse than we imagined," she said quietly. "If we don't act fast, there may be nothing left to save." Lieutenant Rena Kaur nodded grimly. "We have help now," she said, glancing at the shadows moving in the sky. The monsters of Earth had arrived in full force. Their enormous forms moved through the colony like living fortresses. Towering winged predators patrolled the outer perimeter, scanning for infected areas. Massive creatures with thick armor-like skin guarded the supply depots. Even aquatic species transported in special biocontainers purged infected water sources and restored vital systems. The humans and monsters quickly formed a coordinated defense. Humans set traps and barriers using technology, while monsters acted on instinct, moving with speed and precision that machines could never match. Every step was a dance of strategy and survival. Suddenly, alarms rang across the colony. A massive outbreak had erupted in Sector 7. The virus had mutated, twisting colonists into aggressive forms that attacked anything nearby. Mira's heart pounded. "We have to contain it," she shouted, rallying her team. Thyra, the winged predator, swooped down with immense speed, shielding humans from infected colonists. Her wings created strong gusts, pushing dangerous creatures back. Korak used his massive limbs to clear debris and protect vulnerable areas. Smaller monsters darted through the chaos, herding survivors to safety and purifying contaminated zones. The humans were amazed. Technology alone could not have saved them. The monsters' instincts, strength, and intelligence made them unstoppable in ways that human minds could barely comprehend. Yet the crew worked tirelessly alongside them, learning strategies and tactics from their new allies. In the heart of the colony, Dr. Alaric Voss and his team worked frantically to develop a solution to neutralize the virus. They could not risk conventional weapons; the virus adapted too quickly. But with the monsters' assistance, they could reach contaminated areas safely, collect samples, and implement containment measures that would have been impossible alone. Time passed in a blur of action. Explosions rocked the colony as infected machines malfunctioned. Screams echoed through corridors. Humans and monsters moved as one, covering each other's weaknesses. Mira realized that courage was not just about fighting, it was about trust, unity, and learning to see strength in forms you never expected. Then came the greatest threat, the source of the infection itself. Deep within the colony, in the old mining tunnels, a hive-like structure pulsed with alien energy. It was the heart of the virus, intelligent and aware. Machines, humans, and monsters alike froze at its sight. The hive seemed impossible to destroy with conventional attacks. Mira and her team devised a plan. Humans would distract the hive with advanced technology, while the monsters used their unique abilities to strike at its core. Thyra and other flying predators created turbulence, confusing the hive's defenses. Korak and armored ground creatures pushed forward, using brute strength to expose weaknesses. Aquatic and subterranean monsters attacked from hidden angles, exploiting the hive's blind spots. The battle was intense. The hive lashed out with energy tendrils, twisting tunnels and sending infected colonists against them. Mira moved with precision, guiding humans to safety while watching monsters counter every attack. Each strike, each maneuver required cooperation and trust. Finally, after hours of struggle, the hive began to collapse. The combined efforts of humans and monsters had exposed its vulnerability. With one final coordinated push, the hive imploded, neutralizing the virus at its source. Silence fell over the colony, broken only by the heavy breathing of survivors. Mira looked around, her chest heaving. Humans had survived not by technology alone, but through unity with the monsters of Earth. She felt gratitude and awe. These creatures, once feared as dangerous or uncontrollable, had become guardians, teachers, and partners in humanity's survival. The colonists began to rebuild. Machines were repaired, food and water systems restored, and the infected were treated as best as possible. Monsters moved through the colony, not as conquerors, but as silent protectors. Children laughed and ran among them, their fear replaced by wonder. As night fell over Erebus 9, Mira stood once more at the observation platform. The red sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows. The monsters had completed their mission, but their presence remained, a reminder of the courage and unity that had saved the colony. This is only the beginning. Mira whispered to herself. We've learned something important today. Strength is not just in power or technology. It's in trust and cooperation, and in the courage to face the unknown together. Somewhere across the universe, the monsters returned to their guardianship of Earth, but not without leaving a mark on humanity. A lesson of hope, resilience, and partnership that would echo through generations. And on Erebus 9, under the fading red light, humans finally felt safe. For the first time in weeks, they believed they could survive and even thrive, because they were never truly alone. Erebus 9 was quiet at last. The virus had been defeated, the alien hive destroyed, and the immediate danger past. Captain Mira Selene walked through the corridors of the colony, her eyes taking in the recovery work. Humans and monsters worked side by side, repairing damaged structures, cleaning water systems, and tending to the sick and injured. The collaboration that had begun out of desperation had become something stronger: respect, trust, and a shared understanding of survival. The monsters moved gracefully through the colony. Some patrolled the outskirts, still wary of remaining dangers. Others assisted in rebuilding efforts. Thyra, the winged predator, carried large panels of metal and equipment across broken bridges. Korak lifted fallen beams with his massive arms, making room for humans to repair the structures beneath. Even the smaller, more elusive monsters helped, guiding colonists through contaminated zones and purifying food and water. Mira stopped near a group of children playing near a clearing, watched over by one of the smaller guardians. The children laughed freely, no longer afraid of the strange shadows or unfamiliar shapes. Mira smiled. Humanity had survived, and more than that, they had grown stronger. Dr. Alaric Voss approached, holding a data pad. Captain, we've analyzed the hive remnants. The virus is gone, and there is no trace of it spreading further. The colony will recover fully. He hesitated, then added, We owe much of this success to the creatures that came to our aid. Technology alone could not have done it. Mira nodded. They are not just creatures, she said softly. They are guardians, partners, and teachers. We have learned something vital. Strength is not just in machines or weapons. It is in courage, unity, and respect for life beyond ourselves. The monsters began to prepare to leave. The humans had learned to communicate better with them over the past days, understanding gestures, feelings, and shared visions. It was clear that these guardians did not seek reward or recognition. Their mission was done, and yet they had changed humanity in ways that could never be undone. Lena, the little girl who had once clung to her mother in fear, ran to Thyra and touched her wing. The creature lowered her massive head, nuzzling the child gently. Mira watched the interaction and felt a warmth in her chest. This was proof of what had been achieved, a bond between species, born from trust, hope, and shared struggle. As the monsters returned to the hidden currents and portals that would take them home, Mira stood at the observation deck gazing at the stars. The red dust of Erebus 9 stretched endlessly below, but above, the darkness of space no longer felt lonely. Humans were part of a larger web of life, connected to forces far older and wiser than themselves. Dr. Celine Harth, observing from Earth, recorded the final transmissions. This mission will change everything, she said. Humanity has learned humility and cooperation. And the monsters? They have reminded us that life, in all its forms, is a treasure worth protecting. Mira felt a sense of closure as she watched the last of the monsters disappear into the void. The colony was safe, but more importantly, humanity had been reminded of what it truly meant to survive, not just through strength or technology, but through empathy, courage, and unity. Over the following days, the colonists worked to rebuild their homes. Machines were repaired, water systems restored, and crops replanted. The memory of the monsters' assistance remained, not only as a story but as a guide for future generations. Humans learned new ways of observing, understanding, and respecting the life around them, both alien and familiar. Captain Mira gathered the colony leaders together. "We have survived something we could not have faced alone," she said. "We have seen the strength that comes from trust, courage, and cooperation. Let this be our lesson. When we reach for help, whether from friends, allies, or the unknown, we can overcome even the greatest challenges." As night fell over Erebus 9, the red sun disappearing below the horizon, the colony was peaceful. The children slept soundly, the adults worked with purpose, and the monsters were gone, but their presence lingered in every heart. Every lesson learned, every act of courage. For humanity, this was more than survival. It was growth, understanding, and hope. They had faced the unknown and discovered that they were never truly alone. Somewhere in the universe, there were forces beyond imagination, ready to answer a call for help, not for reward, but because life in all its forms was worth protecting. Captain Mira stood once more on the observation deck looking at the endless stars. She whispered softly, almost to herself, "We are stronger than we thought, and we are never alone." The monsters of Earth had returned home silent and unseen, but their legacy would remain forever in the hearts of humans. A new dawn had begun on Erebus 9. The colony was alive again, stronger, wiser, and united. Humanity had survived not through fear, weapons, or technology alone, but through courage, cooperation, and the timeless power of life itself.